Hello guys, this is your friend and we are back with a new fanfic. Which is what if Naruto fell in love with Ino and build harem with Ino, Kurotsuchi and Haku, part 2. And if you enjoy this fanfic then please press the like button and subscribe to my channel for more fanfic like this and comment for next part. And now let's start the fanfic. The redhead shot out of the bathhouse with his backpack and his shirt halfway on. He ninja hopped across the compound and landed just in front of the armory. He laid his backpack down on the ground and fixed his shirt before entering the building. He opened the secret door to his library and took with him 10 of the weird 3-pronged kunai. He liked them for some strange reason. There were entire crates filled with them. But they were different than the 3 that were in glass display cases. While these kunai were literally just 3-pronged kunai, the ones on display had a parchment wrapped around the handle with an unrecognizable seal formula. Naruto filed that away for another time. He placed the kunai in his kunai pouch and headed out for one last pit stop. He checked his watch and sighed at the fact that he only had a few minutes left to go. He was pretty glad that the Yamanaka flower shop was on the main street of Konoha. He hurried off and entered the store in search of a certain blonde. When he saw her he gave one foxy smile and walked up to her with a really rare flower behind his back. It was so rare that not even the Yamanakas had it. The only place that Naruto knew to get it was in his room's indoor garden. "Hey Naruto-kun," Ino chirped. "What brings you?" "No time to explain. I have to be at the South Gate in 5 minutes. But I couldn't wait, so here." He placed a purple rose on the counter in front of her and barged out of the store. From the back of the store Ino's parents came out with a bag of fertilizer under each arm. "Who was that Haim?" Inoichi asked. Just a friend." Ino had a large smile on her face as she examined the purple flower. "Just a friend. I know. I heard you already Haim." With Naruto. He landed with his team 5 minutes after Kakashi showed up. Naruto saw the foreboding look that Kakashi sported and died a little on the inside from fear of what was to come. Kakashi loosened his look and sighed. "Being late is my gimmick." Kakashi pointed to himself to stress the point being made. "Get your own." "Alright, let's get going, shall we?" Tazuna asked. Naruto was amazed by the scenery outside of the village walls. Not once has he been outside of the village. All of his missions leading up to this had been inside the village, and even rarely, to a smaller village a few yards away from the walls of Konoha. Another difference was that they were always to the north or the east. The southern part of the Land of Fire was a complete mystery to Eugenin. After nearly 7 hours of trekking through the forests of the Land of Fire, Naruto, despite his amazing stamina, was sweating bullets. Not from running or even walking, but it was the beating sun above them. It was summer in the Land of Fire. Not only that, but the redhead's attire consists of black in weight, you guessed it, black. Naruto had just finished wiping sweat off of his brow, and then noticed it. The puddle of water sitting in the middle of the road. Naruto looked up to see no clouds in the sky. The first thought that came to mind was that it was a mirage, but when he looked back down, the puddle of water was still there. Naruto concentrated his nature chakra and sensed 2 unknown chakra signatures and 2 more almost half a mile away. The strange thing about the chakra that he sensed that was closer, was in the puddle in front of him. Normally when he'd sense people's chakra signature, he'd be able to see their body type and body structure, but it seemed that these 2 signatures were made from water. He looked to Kakashi, who looked to Sasuke, and Sasuke gave Sakura a subtle look. The entire team knew what was coming. As Naruto walked over the puddle, 2 men in rags rose from the puddle. Both of them had hitayates for the Hidden Mist village. On their right arms, instead of forearms, it was massive gauntlets. Naruto was caught by surprise, leaving Kakashi in their immediate vicinity. Suddenly, beneath the hands, a series of chains shot out from the gauntlets and wrapped around Kakashi. The 2 shinobi tore the man apart. But once they retracted the chains back into their gauntlets, the 2 froze. Their bodies were numb. Suddenly the two coughed up large amounts of blood, before collapsing into massive chunks of meat and bone. Tazuna nearly shit himself when the two shinobi exploded like that. Kakashi jumped down from a tree and clapped softly for his genin. This being your first C rank, I give you all a 10 out of 10 performance. Kakashi nodded his head. Sasuke, Naruto. Good thinking to instantly back up and protect Tazuna. Sakura, excellent use of genjutsu. You had them kill each other. Poetic if you ask me. Kakashi then turned his attention to Tazuna. Those shinobi were after you. Weren't they? Kakashi said in a low tone. Yes. Tazuna looked away to avoid the Junin's killer gaze. Why didn't you pay for a higher ranked mission? Kakashi asked. My team is only fresh out of the academy with no combat experience. Tazuna sighed and explained the situation of Wave to the team. The nation was dry of its money and was struggling to keep afloat, especially with a businessman named Gatos, monopoly placed on the country's shipping companies. The only way to free Wave from Gatos' disgusting clutches was to build a bridge to disrupt the demand for shipping. Why ship things when you can cross a bridge? Gato knows that it would be bad business, so he hired shinobi to kill Tazuna, leaving the bridge builder in his current situation. Please, help my people. I beg of you. Tazuna pleaded to Kakashi. Yeah, Sasuke said. We need to get some experience, Yano. Sakura grunted in agreement. Definitely. A shinobi does missions to protect and help people, right? Naruto asked. So what makes this mission any different? Fine. But if it gets too hard, then we will turn back and go home. Understood. Kakashi said. The team was led through a network of tunnels and pathways that formed a complex maze meant to confuse Gato's more efficient goons. Already, Wave's resistance force had taken down a few of Gato's goons without any issue, but Gato seemed to have an infinite amount of power, money and resources to do whatever he wants, leaving the people of Wave in his control, even if it is unofficial. The team disembarked on the coast of the main island in the land of Waves and made a cautious pace through the thick mist that had befallen the area during this time of the day. Naruto's senses were at an all-time paranoia. His chakra sensing ability was going haywire. The chakra signature that he had sensed from before is all around him. The chakra is so foul, it's like a black cloud of ash. Even his channeling of nature chakra was disturbed by the amount of this evil chakra. After a few minutes he finally realized what it was. His eyes widened. Everyone down. Naruto called out. All 5 people dropped to prone position and looked around cautiously. A large Zanbato sped through the forest canopy and embedded into a tree trunk. The shinobi present shifted their original positions and repositioned their bodies to protect Tazuna. Kakashi raised his Hitai and narrowed his eyes. Hitaki Kakashi. So that's what your face looks like. Zabuza said as he tried to stifle his laughter. Momochi Zabuza. I'm flattered. Kakashi deadpanned. Anyway, to what do I owe the dishonor? Hand over the bridge builder and I'll let you and your team leave unscathed. Pretty boy. Zabuza was really pushing it. Kakashi growled and popped his back. You just pissed me off, Zabuza. Kakashi growled. You 3. Protect Tazuna. I'll handle this asswipe. Why is he getting so uptight? Sakura backed away slightly. It's like, oh Kami. What is it, Sakura? The Uchiha of the trio asked. I think I know why Kakashi wore masks. Sakura took a deep breath. He didn't want to be called a pretty boy. Really? Naruto snickered slightly. With Kakashi. Since you pissed me off, I think it's time to unleash the most powerful jutsu in my arsenal. Kakashi disappeared and reappeared behind Zabuza. The missing ninja had no idea what hit him. Senin Garashi. Kakashi roared from behind Zabuza with his fingers in the tiger hand seal. Both Naruto and Sasuke were horrified by the prospect of a point-blank fire jutsu. But all of their fears were washed away and replaced with utter disgust. Kakashi rammed the chakra-enhanced hand seal up Zabuza's butthole. The missing ninja rocketed into the air screaming obscenities toward pretty boy shinobi with blood vessel-popped eyes, just before he landed in the nearby river. Kakashi hopped off the Kubikiribocho and clapped his hands together with a successful smile on his face. Not only did the Junin get rid of a near S-ranked missing ninja, but he also embarrassed him in the process. Alright, how much farther to Tazuna-san? Kakashi asked. I wouldn't want to be here when he gets. You goddamn pervert, a dark and foreboding voice echoed from the river. Zabuza arose from the river with dragons of water spiraling around him like a double helix. I am going to kill you and your little team. Sweden. Swearyuden Renden. Zabuza growled. Suddenly the two dragons of water split into fourths and shot out at Team 7. Scatter. Sakura. Grab Tazuna and get the hell out of here. Kakashi and the more combat adept genin jumped out of the way as the barrage of water dragons shot for them. Sasuke maneuvered his way in between the various water dragons. He ducked and pulled out a kunai and slashed one of the dragons dead. He smiled at his success but had to quickly kawarimi with something. Without a second thought, he kawarimied with a Naruto clone. The poor clone didn't know what hit him. Naruto was struggling to dodge all of the dragons because his tails were swinging around in different directions. It was pretty hard to control their float patterns. A dragon shot for the redhead. In a last-ditch effort he channeled a large amount of chakra. As before, his chakra was red instead of blue. The hot demonic chakra evaporated the water dragons. The Uzumaki looked to see his sensei charging for the missing nin. With Kakashi. Pretty boy has come out to play. Zabuza said with a still feral-like voice. He clapped his hands and the Kubikiribocho dislodged itself from the tree it was embedded in and spun through the air towards Zabuza. Just before Kakashi could get Zabuza with a kunai, the two clashed with each other. The Kubikiribocho cut halfway through Kakashi's kunai. Zabuza kicked the Junin back and slashed in a blind fury hoping to decapitate, or seriously maim the Konoha shinobi. Kakashi backflipped and sent a barrage of shuriken which were easily blocked by the Kubikiribocho. But that was only a distraction since Kakashi had rounded Zabuza's right flank as he finished his hand seal set. Sweden. Daibakufu no Jutsu. Suddenly, water from the river started swirling around Kakashi. After a few seconds of building up strength, the vortex shot out and forced Zabuza through the area, tearing up the landscape. After a few minutes of drilling the missing ninja into the forest surrounding the river, Zabuza was revealed leaning against a tree, drenched in water. Come on. Kakashi called out to his team. The genin and Tazuna met up with Kakashi at the site where Zabuza laid barely conscious. He used the tree as leverage to help to his feet. He glared at Kakashi with as much killing intent as possible. Why does it smell so bad? Sakura asked. It reminds me of that stink bomb prank a few months ago. Sasuke and Naruto pinched their nostrils shut. That damn technique, Zabuza growled. Suddenly his stomach overturned and the entire area was filled with another powerful stench. Zabuza turned red from embarrassment from under the bandages around his face. Kakashi held his right hand ready and chakra suddenly exploded out in the form of a Chidori. Sorry Zabuza, but no one calls me a pretty boy without facing the consequences, Kakashi sighed. I really don't want to kill you, but since you will be a hindrance Kakashi's monologue was interrupted when two Senbon whizzed through the air and stuck Zabuza in his neck, killing him. The Junin flinched when he heard the Senbon hit the nuke nin's neck. The mist ninja plopped down on the ground with his butt rubbing against the tree trunk. Suddenly, a Kiri hunter ninja appeared and looked at the Konoha shinobi. Thank you for taking care of Zabuza. The hunter nin said. I'll dispose of his body elsewhere. They quickly disappeared, leaving no trace of their existence. Kakashi sighed and lowered his Hitai to cover his Sharingan eye. He nodded his head and looked back at his students and smiled right before he collapsed on top of Tazuna. Because of Kakashi's higher weight, he easily crushed Tazuna. Alright, we've been over this scenario before. Naruto make clones to carry both Kakashi and Tazuna to his house. Naruto nodded at Sakura and without another word he formed 12 clones. 6 for each person. At Chizuna's house, the next day. Well then, I didn't mean to use up my chakra like an idiot like that, Kakashi gave a wry laugh. So we won't be able to do any hardcore training until I get better, or even worse, I'll have to wait until we get back home. Let's head out to the forest for some training. Kakashi picked up his crutches and led the group out to an empty clearing near the house. Here are some chakra cards. What does it do? Sakura asked as she examined the little card of paper. Channel your chakra through it and it will read your chakra affinity. If it burns, fire. Turns to dust, earth. Splits in half, wind. Crumples, lightning. And last but not least and the most obvious, if it soaks up, water. So what are you three waiting for? Get to it. Kakashi nodded his head reassuringly at his students. Sakura channeled her chakra causing the little card of paper to crumple but then it turned to dust. Sakura was surprised. She looked up at Kakashi whom of which just smiled and closed his one eye. Sasuke did the same causing his chakra card to crumple up, but instead of it turning to dust, it shot up in flames terrifying the other two genin by how powerful the flame was. Sasuke looked to Kakashi for an answer but he received the same reply as Sakura did. And last was Naruto. The redhead held his chakra card and channeled chakra through it causing the card to split in half. Shortly after the halves became soaked in water leaving him with two completely wet chakra cards. He raised an eyebrow and waited for Kakashi to give them an explanation. Kakashi though had a thinking expression and completely blocked out his students. Sakura, as your chakra card entails, you have affinities for earth and lightning. Look at the dust pile that was made. Do you see any traces of the chakra card left? After Kakashi received a no he nodded his head and continued. That means that your affinities are very strong for those two elements. Sasuke. We can see your little chakra card bonfire still burning. Sasuke nodded his head at it as it continued to burn. That means that your fire affinity is almost stronger than your lightning affinity. How strong is my affinity though? Sasuke asked. Look at how small the card is compared to what it once was. The card is no longer a card, but instead it's a ball no bigger than a few millimeters. Kakashi smiled. That is a really impressive strength towards any affinity. And last to you Naruto. I originally thought that you'd be a straight wind user, but it seems that I was wrong. You have the two of the three elemental affinities that your father had. Your father had wind, water and lightning as his chakra affinities. Kakashi reached into the backpack leaning against his leg and pulled out 6 scrolls. Here, Kakashi said. Sasuke you have the lightning and fire scrolls. Sakura you have the lightning and earth scrolls and Naruto you have the wind, water and lightning scrolls just in case for the third one. This isn't lightning, it says Kakashi's secret fan fiction. The three genin's eyes widened and they looked back at Kakashi to see his cheeks beat red. Why the? Give that to me if you don't want to experience the 1,000 years of death. Kakashi's face darkened. Haha. Not only is Kakashi-sensei a pretty boy but he's also a crazed fanboy. Naruto was laughing in his mind. Kura and Kushina joined in as well. It was pretty funny, but hey, everyone needs a hobby, right? I wonder what he writes about. Here, Naruto tossed the scroll at Kakashi. The man then hurled a lightning scroll at Naruto's head, knocking the redhead over. Go. Start training will ya? A few days later. The mission was going fairly well seeing as how there hasn't been one attack on the Tazuna household, nor at the bridge. The bridge was coming along quite nicely making the three genin gawk at how experienced Tazuna was in building bridges. When the team first arrived in Wave, the bridge was nowhere near halfway completion, but in just a few short days, he was able to bring it to 2/3 completion. The three genin were also excelling in their elemental training. Kakashi was still teased about his secret fan fiction scroll. Kakashi was already annoyed with this mission. The silver-haired Junin wore the mask since he was a genin. He even wore the damn mask under another mask, while he wore the Anbu mask when he was enlisted. But when he takes it off, Every kunoichi wants to give birth to his children and every shinobi calls him a pretty boy. It was almost as bad as Minato. But people actually thought Minato was actually gay. Putting that aside, Kakashi was quite proud at how his students were coming along with their training. The only problem was that he couldn't help train Naruto with his wind manipulation. He was going to have to wait until they got home and have Asuma train him in wind techniques. Seeing as how Asuma is Ino's sensei, Kakashi also had dirt on the redhead. When Kakashi first said that Naruto would train with Team 10 for wind manipulation since Asuma was the best that the village had, almost immediately Sasuke and Sakura were teasing Naruto about Ino. Ino-chan, Sasuke would say with a pseudo-Naruto voice. I wish to sweep you off your feet with my wind jutsu. Odu so Naruto-kun, Sakura said with an overly girl voice. Blow my mind. Then Sakura would proceed to faint and land in Sasuke's arms. It was fun. As of now, it was another day of nothing since Kakashi was doing protection duty for Tazuna at the construction site. Naruto and Sasuke were arm wrestling on a boulder in the front yard, while Sakura helped Tsunami cook dinner for the whole family. Sasuke was struggling to keep his muscles flexed. He was sweating bullets as he continued to strain his muscles against the stamina freak known as Uzumaki Namikaze Naruto. Naruto wasn't even sweating as he continued to keep their arm wrestle match at a stalemate. Naruto wasn't even struggling against the Uchiha. Grr. I can still kick you in a fight. Sasuke sent as much chakra as possible to his arm to force back Naruto's. Naruto smiled at Sasuke. The Uchiha started laughing as something started tickling his right armpit. His right arm just so happened to be the arm he used to wrestle with Naruto. He looked down, breaking his concentration to see Naruto's tail tickling his armpit. With his attention elsewhere, Naruto sent his red chakra into his arm and slammed Sasuke's hand into the boulder, smashing it into fourths. That was fun. A few hours later, it was nighttime and another peaceful day. But the dinner setting wasn't so peaceful. Tonight was the night that Tsunami's son, Inari, chose to finally come out and eat with everyone for dinner. The kid looked pissed off and seemed to have been crying. Naruto at first didn't care, but after a few minutes of awkward silence, Naruto chose to finally say something, but Inari beat him to it. Why do you even try? Inari mumbled. Heroes only die, so stop trying. Gato is going to kill all of you. Hey now, I don't. Naruto tried to be calm and nice about it, but Inari rudely interrupted him. Shut up, Inari shouted. My country's pain is worse than yours. You shinobi live behind those big walls, knowing no pain, completely safe. Hey, Naruto shouted back. His tails were swishing behind him, giving off a malicious aura, scaring everyone silent. Naruto's purple eyes glowed with a sinister luminescence. Who are you to tell us that we know no pain? Naruto's tail slashed around and shot his chair into a wall, shattering it to splinters. May I have permission, Sasuke? Go ahead. Sasuke looked away. Uchiha Sasuke. Remember that name. He had a family. No, he had a clan. Hundreds of people that he had to look up to, but in one night, all of them were massacred by his own brother. His own flesh and blood. Then there's me. I was kicked out of an orphanage at the age of 5. I was hunted for every day of my life for the next 7 years by my own neighbors. So don't tell us that we don't know what pain is. Naruto flared his chakra and accidentally set his food on fire. Naruto growled and headed for the back door. Wait. Naruto-ni. Where are you going? Sakura asked, getting worried. I'm going out to blow off steam. Naruto slammed the door shut and hopped off through the forest. Is all of that true? Tazuna asked. What's his name? Inari asked. Yes, it's true. And his name? Kakashi trailed off. It's Uzumaki Namikaze Naruto. Remember it? Sasuke said as he continued to eat. A few hours later, Naruto was fast asleep after tearing through trees all throughout the night. He smiled in his sleep as his dreams revolved around Ino and becoming Hokage. His dream changed and even went to him becoming the cage of a hidden ramen village. Don't ask. Naruto was sprawled on the ground, with no shirt on. Next to a tree was the remains of his shirt. Suddenly from the brush and foliage of the undamaged side of the forest came a beautiful girl in a cute pink kimono. She had beautiful chocolate brown eyes. She calmly walked into the clearing with a little basket filled with various herbs and plants. She tilted her head when she laid her eyes on the sleeping shirtless boy lying in the center of the clearing. She walked up to him and nudged him awake. Hey! The girl shook Naruto awake. Whoa! Naruto's eyes practically popped from his sockets. Hello. Haha. I'm Haku. Haku said with a bright smile and a slight blush. Naruto sat up to introduce himself better, revealing 9 fox tails. Why you have tails? Haku looked Naruto up and down and realized after examining him better, the boy had fox ears, fox whiskers and deep purple blue eyes with a slitted pupil. She blushed deeper when she noticed how nice his eyes were. Oh, hey, I'm Naruto. Pleased to meet you, Haku. Naruto smiled. So what are you doing here? Well, Haku was extremely flustered. She was quick to notice things and found it extremely cute that Naruto's tails wagged when he smiled. It was like he was half dog or something. Want some help picking herbs? Naruto asked after looking into the basket in her hands. I kinda saw some herbs hanging out of the basket. Someone close to you sick or something? Naruto asked as he stood up. Haku blushed even more when she realized how tall and muscled he actually was. A good friend of mine is sick. Haku stuttered. Oh, I'll help you out. A few minutes later. So that's the last of them. Naruto said with a smile. Thank you, Naruto-kun. Haku replied. I guess I'll have to get going. Wait. Naruto said sternly. You were that hunter nin that came to get Zabuza, huh? How'd you know? Haku spun around and threw a handful of senbon, which Naruto easily deflected with his 3-pronged kunai. After the first moment of surprise, Naruto quickly closed the distance between them and held his kunai at her throat. Your scent. Naruto tapped his nose. You smell like snow. There's no way I can forget that smell. Haku was at a loss for words. Not only was Naruto barely a few centimeters from her face, but he caught her. I'm not going to kill you. Don't worry. Naruto sighed. I just want you to know that if we ever fight again, I won't hold back. Alright. Haku nodded her head while trying to fight off the crazy blush rising to her cheeks. But right now I really have to go. Be safe and good luck, Haku. A few days later, Naruto awoke to the sounds of breaking glass and overturning furniture. Naruto growled slightly and pushed himself out of bed. He trudged out of the room and headed for the stairwell that led to the first floor of the house. He took a deep breath and sighed, completely forgetting about the sounds of struggling from a few minutes before. Holy! I overslept. Naruto shouted out when he checked his watch. He charged back to his room and threw on his shirt and strapped on his kunai pouch and headed out to head off for the bridge. But there was a scream. Naruto stopped what he was doing and crouched down halfway down the stairs. He heard gasping and screaming, but he couldn't discern what was happening. He drew out a kunai and quietly tiptoed down the stairs. Once he stepped off the final step, he found that the curtains were draped and the lights were off. It was dark in the house, even though it was midday. He rounded the corner. Tsunami. Naruto growled out. His blood boiled at the sight of 2 of Gado's thugs raping Tsunami on the front porch of the house. Naruto's purple eyes darkened and his pupil changed from black to blood red. Red chakra started flowing from his body as his emotions got the better of him. He got down on all fours and crawled like an animal towards the scene. His tails were swinging around, getting ready for Naruto to pounce on his targets. The thugs suddenly stopped and dropped Tsunami on the ground and drew their swords. The air felt heavy and cold. It was thin and it hurt when they breathed. Naruto crawled out of the house and growled at the 2. His entire body was nothing but a silhouette, leaving his glowing eyes to be seen. The two thugs shivered and looked around to see the lake start freezing over. Their breath turned to mist and the grass started frosting. You two are so dead. Naruto sat up and all 9 tails shot out and grabbed the limbs of the two thugs and he tore them apart. Their blood splattered out and colored the now white land with blotches of red. Naruto called his tails back and focused on Tsunami. He removed his shirt and put it over Tsunami and led her into the house. She had an expressionless face. Her cheeks were swollen and her eyes were puffy. She looked over at Naruto and gave a small, almost unnoticeable smile, before passing out. The redhead exhaled to calm himself down and straightened himself out. He looked up at the top of the stairwell and found Inari standing there with a terrified look on his face. He was about to say something but Naruto raised his hand to shut him up. Naruto picked up his kunai and gave it to Inari. Go into the village and gather as many people as you possibly can. Naruto spoke calmly with a tone of command. We might need all of the help we can get. Alright Ni-san. Inari shouted and sprang out the back door towards the village. Time to head out to the bridge. At the bridge, Shunpo. Naruto flashed into the area with a botched landing. But the botched landing saved his life from the ball of a kusarigama. He barrel rolled forward and watched as a large fireball shot from Sasuke's mouth. Next to Sasuke was Sakura speeding through hand seals. All around there were thugs with projectiles embedded in their bodies. Naruto. Sasuke shouted out to the redhead. Get moving. Got it. Naruto jumped to his feet and punched a thug in his temple, sending him careening over the side of the bridge. He sighed in relief when Sakura formed an earth dome to surround herself and Tazuna, effectively keeping them safe from the fight. Fuden. Furyu no Jutsu. Naruto shot out a large translucent dragon from his mouth. The dragon smashed with a group of thugs, sending them over the side of the bridge with a shower of blood following them. Naruto. Get down. Sasuke was speeding through hand seals. Kaden. Karyu Enden no Jutsu. Sasuke sent off a large wave of fire that wiped away a large thug armed with a kanabo. Naruto rolled to the side and pushed himself off the ground and drew out a kunai. What the hell happened here? Naruto asked. We were attacked by Zabuza and a large group of thugs. Sasuke replied. Right now Kakashi-sensei is fighting Zabuza. And now you're fighting me. Haku laughed out, sounding slightly delirious. She hurled a large barrage of Senbon that the boys easily dodged and evaded. But when they landed, thugs were waiting for them. Sasuke ducked when one went for a neck slash, and rammed his kunai in the man's stomach. Sasuke slashed his fat belly open and tore the kunai out. Sasuke quickly flicked his wrist and sent the kunai flying into another thug's eye. Naruto kicked a thug in the throat, and forced his foot around with a wide 360 kick and connected with the back of the man's head. The force of the kick sent the thug into the ground, face first. Naruto dropped down and sent all 9 tails out, and strengthened them with his nature chakra. He impaled the remaining thugs, killing each one instantly. Naruto scrapped them off and focused his attention on Haku, whom of which was going through unknown hand seals. Makio Hyosho. Suddenly all around the two boys, a series of mirrors started forming out of ice. It continued to form up and started rising upwards to form a dome of ice mirrors. Naruto and Sasuke went back to back and eyed each mirror carefully. The strange thing about these mirrors was that their reflection wasn't shown, but instead it was Haku's reflection. In each one, she held a handful of Senbon ready to attack. The two boys eyed each other nervously. Suddenly, the Senbon were thrown, impaling both of them in various parts of their bodies. Sasuke tried to fight back using fire jutsu, but the mirrors were too strong, and Haku was too fast to catch. Naruto shot his tails out to try and catch her mid-flight, but again, she was too strong. Naruto then tried to use wind jutsu to blow back the Senbon, but they were too aerodynamic and simply cut through each wind attack. After about 20 minutes, Naruto and Sasuke both looked like pin cushions. Sasuke was wheezing from having nearly 200 Senbon embedded in his body. Naruto fared no better. Suddenly, Sasuke got a strange sensation from his eyes when he noticed Haku aiming for Naruto. Sasuke acted on impulse and charged out to protect his brother. Splash. Ga. Sasuke fell back with nearly 500 Senbon embedded in the boy's torso. Sasuke coughed violently and gulped in pain. Naruto laid his head on his lap and looked at Sasuke with a horrified look on his face. Sasuke tried to give Naruto a reassuring smile, but failed when blood shot from his mouth and splashed on Naruto's fishnet undershirt. Sasuke. Naruto looked at the black-haired boy. That's what brothers are for, right? Sasuke gave a painful laugh. Promise me that you'll become Hokage no matter what, and please tell Itachi that I forgive him. No, you'll be the one to tell him that. You're not going to die, Ni-san. Naruto growled. Naruto, I'm going to die. A tear fell from Sasuke's left eye. At least I activated the Sharingan before Sasuke went limp. His head leaned over and fell off of Naruto's lap. No, Ni-san. Naruto howled, terrifying Haku and everyone on the bridge. Zabuza and Kakashi stopped their fight and looked through the large mist cloud surrounding the bridge and found a large dome made from what looked to be mirrors. Kakashi gulped nervously and looked back to Zabuza. Suddenly the mist formed by Zabuza started gathering to form water droplets. Because of this, the mist disappeared completely, revealing the rest of the bridge to be seen. Kakashi and Zabuza's eyes widened. The droplets were pulled violently by a powerful gust of wind. It was strong enough to pull both Junins off their feet and drag them 20 feet before they were able to grab onto something. Water from the ocean shot up and headed for the dome. Within the dome, I swear I'm going to kill you. Naruto's hair was waving wildly, covering his eyes, and his tails were swirling maliciously. He was covered in a blood-red aura of chakra, and surrounding him the center of the dome was a large vortex of water and wind. I didn't mean to kill him. Those weren't supposed to kill anything if they hit the back, but the damned Uchiha had to go and protect Naruto-kun. Haku looked down in defeat. Now he's going to kill me. Naruto looked up and revealed his eyes. Haku gasped at the sight and blushed deeply from behind her mask. She was also too terrified to reach for another handful of Senbon. Naruto's eyes were light purple with a mix of cerulean. His right eye had 3 dots in a triangle formation that surrounded his pupil, which was a circle. The triangle was pointed upwards, while in his left eye, which had the same pattern, the triangle was pointed down. Naruto then raised his arm, which Haku had just realized, was Senbon free. Naruto at first had all 5 fingers extended out, which had no effect, but he brought back his pinky finger, sending in a barrage of little water vortexes, amplified by wind at the mirrors, slightly cracking them much to Haku's surprise. He closed his ring finger and shot 3 dragons formed from the built-up water vortex that surrounded him. The dragons collided with the mirrors, completely shattering a few and damaged the rest. It's time to finish this. Naruto shut his fist and jumped with the flowing vortex as it shot for Haku. Once the vortex smashed Haku's mirror open, Naruto's fist came out of the flowing water and smashed with Haku's mask, shattering it apart to reveal her beautiful chocolate brown eyes. She looked at Naruto with a forlorn expression. She didn't dare to look up at Naruto. Haku, Naruto said with a crack in his voice. How could you? Naruto shouted. I owe my life to Zabuza. Even though I think of him as a father, I am nothing but a tool to be used, Haku said. Tool? Naruto asked, taken aback by the reply. I'm sorry Naruto-kun, but I can't fail Zabuza-sama. The girl charged off for Zabuza. Naruto was surprised by her speed. He wasn't fast enough to stop Kakashi from ramming a Chidori in her chest. Naruto stopped dead in his tracks when he saw Kakashi's lightning cutter plow through her heart. No. Suddenly everything was being played back as if someone had pressed the rewind button on the TV remote. Everything was being reversed while Naruto seemed to be floating around to witness everything that had happened. It came to the point where he had just punched Haku, but it didn't stop there. It continued to reverse to the point that Naruto saw his dujutsu for the first time. Then the vision stopped. Everything started clearing. I owe my life to Zabuza, even though I think of him as a father. I am nothing but a tool to be used, Haku said. Naruto looked in confusion. But just before she could shoot off for Zabuza, Naruto quickly formed a shadow clone that grabbed Haku with his tails. Naruto gave her a quick nod before going through hand seals. Naruto took a deep breath. Kawarimi no Jutsu. Naruto disappeared and was replaced with Zabuza. Splash. Naruto. Kakashi screamed in surprise. His hand was inside Naruto's chest, instead of Zabuza's. What have you done? I couldn't let you kill them, Naruto gasped out. His hand moved Kakashi's arm just in time to make his sensei completely miss his heart. Naruto pushed Kakashi's hand from his chest and almost instantly, the wound healed. Kakashi looked at Naruto's eyes and saw Naruto's new eyes. Kakashi's jaw dropped and a slight smile started forming, even though he had just stabbed his student in the chest with a chidori. Naruto. Sasuke's voice rang in Naruto's fox ears. I'm alive. Holy, I'm alive. The earth dome that housed Sakura and Tazuna collapsed and Sakura quickly ran for Sasuke. Tazuna stayed with the other shinobi. Naruto and Kakashi coughed awkwardly at each other and walked toward the rest of the group on the bridge. Sasuke flinched when Haku got down on her knees to heal Sasuke. The pink-haired genin was nervous at first but didn't do anything. As that, Zabuza's voice cracked slightly. Is that the case me? Case me? Haku asked with wide eyes. Case me? Naruto asked, not even realizing that his dujutsu was still active. What's the case me? It's the wind eye. It is the dujutsu native to the Namikaze clan. Naruto's eyes went just as wide as Haku's. Naruto. The last two people on this planet other than you was your father and your grandfather. Then that means, this kid is the son of the Yondaime Ho. You piece of worthless shit. A loud grouchy voice sounded from the other side of the bridge. Since Naruto had ate up all of the mist that surrounded the bridge, everyone had perfect view of who it was. It was a small man in a business suit, backed by a small army of thugs armed with various types of weaponry, ranging from katanas to spears and harpoons. I spent so much money on you, but for what? For you to fail. Zabuza glared at Gato. Oh, what are you going to do, huh? Glare me to death. Gato hollered. We outnumber you 20 to 1. Numbers mean nothing, you little prick. Naruto growled out. He looked to Zabuza and Haku. Don't worry. I'll handle this. I have a score to settle. Ha. The little red-headed kid is coming here with tails swinging behind him. What a freak. One of the thugs shouted. Yeah. Demon. Brat. Loser. Monster. Naruto took the insults in strides. He hadn't been called those names in almost 2 whole years. He clenched his fists and channeled his anger. He couldn't wait to kill them. He stopped just a good 10 feet away from Gato. The Kazemi was spiraling wildly, scaring a few thugs in the process. Naruto suddenly shot an invisible blast of wind that plowed through Gato's head. The midget's face was removed and a giant hole resided instead. Hey! One of the thugs shouted. Die. Naruto's tail shot out and smashed and thrashed about, dismembering thug after thug, turning the entire end of the bridge into a bloodbath. Thugs tried to slash and defend against the fox tails, that could grow and shrink like an akimichi, but it was futile. The tails were impenetrable and extremely powerful. Naruto swung one of his tails and the swing had enough power in it to bisect large groups. After a few minutes, Naruto retracted his tails to their original size and huffed at the sight before him. Mutilated lumps of what used to be body parts were piled all over the bridge. Weapons were left of the ground and blood painted the bridge. There was so much blood that it poured over the unfinished end and dripped off into the ocean below. Naruto turned around and gave a weak smile to the shinobi present but passed out shortly afterwards. Almost an entire week later, Naruto awoke with an extreme headache. His head was wrapped in bandages and his chest was bare. Naruto took a deep breath and looked at his ruined fishnet shirt. He started contemplating whether or not he should stop wearing shirts altogether. That was his 20th fishnet undershirt that he had packed for the mission, and also the last one he had. His metal-plated shirts were also ruined, leaving him shirtless until they came home. He pushed himself off the bed and found a flower made from ice sitting in a vase made from ice as well. He smiled slightly and stretched. His tails followed shortly after, completely relaxing his muscles and throbbing head. He stood up off the bed and walked out the bedroom door and headed downstairs for something to eat. Or at least to regain his bearings. He entered the living room to see an extremely happy Team 7 conversing with Haku. In the kitchen, Zabuza and Kakashi were discussing something over coffee. Naruto shrugged and walked over to his friends and plopped onto Sasuke's lap. He too was bandaged up, but it wasn't too bad. The Uchiha growled at Naruto and pushed him over, but Naruto's head landed in Haku's kimono, making his head squish in between her s. Zabuza spit his coffee out onto Kakashi's face and drew out the kubikiribocho and held it at Naruto's throat. The man had gotten rid of the bandages, revealing his face. Zabuza growled, revealing his shark-like teeth. He had a petrifying look that spelled instant death to the poor redhead. Speaking of the redhead, his cheeks were almost just as red as his hair. "I know you saved us and all, I owe you my life." Zabuza started. "But if you think that you can get a freebie from my daughter like that, think again." Zabuza pressed the Zanbato against Naruto's throat. The poor boy was sweating bullets. Naruto was too afraid to nod his head and he was too afraid to open his mouth, so he shot up a weak thumb up. Naruto's hands were shaking at a ridiculous rate, making Zabuza laugh and relinquish his blade's hold on Naruto's throat. A few days later, now at the finished and unnamed bridge, Team 7 and the Momochi family were standing at the bridge gate. Behind them, the people of Wave were cheering on their heroes. Well, hero. Naruto, the tailed redhead, was speaking to Haku while his teammates conversed with the villagers and Kakashi spoke to Zabuza about important Junin matters. "Will I ever see you again?" Naruto asked the black-haired beauty. "You can bet on it, Naruto-kun." Haku smiled and gave his a deep kiss. Both of them savoring the feeling for as much as possible. "Naruto-kun. Don't wait for me though. There is a high possibility that I might die from what me and Tu-san are planning. Get with that Ino girl that you told me about, but when the time comes, and I'm still alive." Haku got on her tippy toes and leaned in and whispered some fantasies that Naruto could have only hoped to be real while he read Ika Ika. When she leaned back, she and Naruto were both as red as his hair. Naruto seemed to be a stuttering mess and Haku seemed to be flustered. Neither of them were able to formulate words. Naruto resigned to just smiling like an idiot. Haku was about to say something but Zabuza had called for her. Naruto was called by Kakashi, thus ending their last embrace. "Wait, Naruto-kun," Haku called out with a bright smile. A blush was still adorning her cheeks, albeit light. Naruto turned around and Haku grabbed him for one more kiss. Everyone present cheered even louder for the two. When they parted, there was a small trail of saliva that brought their lips together. That was for the road. "Why yeah," Naruto stuttered, before Sakura and Sasuke started tugging at his tails. "We'll see each other again." Once the two groups headed off for their respective paths, Tazuna looked at the bridge and asked a really important question. What was the bridge going to be named? Many names were called out but one stuck the most. The name was proposed by Inari. The young boy was smiling for the first time since his father was publicly executed. He held the three-pronged kunai given to him by the hero of Wave. "We'll name this bridge the Great Uzumaki Namikaze Bridge." Team 7 walked home feeling successful. Kakashi was beaming at his students and was feeling quite happy with himself. He couldn't help but smile at the fact that his 3 students were all prodigies. Not only that, but both Naruto and Sasuke had powerful Dujutsu unlocked, making his team a team of powerhouses. Sakura, as seen from what Haku had taught her during 1 week reprise in Wave, has a talent in medical ninjutsu. They were making good time the village since they didn't have to walk home. Without a civilian with them, they could tree hop all the way back to Konoha. They had left just 2 hours prior and they could already see the village walls. During this time, the team members were conversing with one another. Each one was equally excited for training. Surprisingly, Sakura more than the other two since she was going to be learning medical ninjutsu from the hospital. So, Naruto, what happened to Ino-chan? Sasuke teased for the umpteenth time since they left the great Uzumaki Namikaze bridge. Nothing happened. Naruto replied. Really? Sakura piped. Because from what I remember seeing was, you and a beautiful ice mistress lip-locking on the bridge. Gah! Leave me alone. Naruto shouted and picked up speed, leaving a laughing Sasuke and Sakura behind him. So, Naruto, what's this I hear about you leaving Ino for Haku? Kakashi asked. Oh come on. Not you too. Naruto growled and shot his tails out to use his vines to get away from his team. A few minutes later, the team landed at the south gate of Konoha. Already waiting was Kotetsu and Izumo doing their guard duties as usual. The two of them gave nods to Team 7, still happy with the way they handled the Tora mission. Even though Naruto didn't think much about it, he was labeled as a legend amongst shinobi already because of the fact that he was able to impress the daimyo's wife and catch Tora without having the cat try to kill him. Without those tails, it wouldn't be possible. Team 7 was on their way to the Hokage Tower for mission debrief. Naruto was still shirtless and was picking his nose while Sasuke and Sakura were talking about pointless things. Kakashi though was thinking about more important subjects. Like the fact that Naruto has the Kazemi and the fact that his grandfather is the only person alive that could help him. And he also wanted Naruto to get in a good word with the old man. Kakashi wanted a free copy of Jiraiya's newest addition to the series After All Yano. Naruto didn't know it yet, but his grandfather was the author of the greatest book series in the history of book series. And the fact that his grandfather was a Sannin was a good trait to boot. Team 7 entered the Hokage's office expecting a normal day of mission debriefs, but when they entered the office, they came to see a tall white-haired man with a large scroll on his back, talking to the Hokage. Hokage-sama, Kakashi said with a deep bow. We are ready to give you our mission report. That can wait, Kakashi, Hiruzen said with a raised hand. Sasuke, Sakura, you two are dismissed for now. I need to discuss something with Naruto-kun and your sensei. Once the two genin left, the white-haired man turned around and almost instantly his jaw dropped. In front of him was a shirtless redhead with deep whisker marks and fox ears. His eyes were a mix of deep purple and cerulean. His pupils were slits instead of circles. Behind him were 9 fox tails wagging in anticipation. The kid looked up in the Jiraiya and tilted his head slightly. Why you? What the hell happened to you? Jiraiya screamed out and grabbed Naruto in for a tight back-breaking hug. Who the hell are you? Naruto asked while trying his hardest to break free from the deadly hug. Jiraiya relinquished his embrace and gave Naruto a sad smile. The man shut his eyes for a moment. Naruto sensed a small chakra spike. His jaw dropped when he saw the man's new eyes. The Kazemi, Naruto gasped. That means, I am the great Jiraiya Namikaze. The old man jumped onto the Hokage desk and broke out into a pose. Oh, and I just so happen to be the author of those books you have hidden in your backpack. Shit. How do you know? Naruto asked in surprise. I can sense a pervert when I see one. Jiraiya gave a big smile. Because I am the king of perverts. The super pervert. There was a moment of awkward silence as the white-haired grandfather waited for a fanfare of trumpets, or at least applause. Jiraiya sighed and hopped off of the desk and looked at Naruto. I also happen to be your grandfather. Sweet. Naruto smiled. But now explain why you look like this. Jiraiya said with a serious look on his face. I'm just curious if Kushina and Minato know about this. They do. Gigi. Naruto looked at Hiruzen. Can I have Inoichi-san get Arrow Gigi into my mindscape? Naruto asked with his childlike innocence. Haha. Hiruzen laughed. That's the first time I've heard that. Anyway, I can. Come by here in around 4 in the afternoon, which gives you 4 hours of reprise since you just came back from a C-ranked mission. Naruto nodded his head and headed out of the tower in search of someone of high importance. He flash-stepped out of the building and reappeared at the Yamanaka flower shop. Looks like Ino is still working at this time. Sweet. Naruto opened the door and walked up to the counter with a bright smile on his face, completely forgetting that he didn't have a shirt on. Ino had her back turned, but when she swiveled around to face Naruto, her jaw dropped and she turned into a stuttering case of teenage girl syndrome. She couldn't keep her eyes off of Naruto's bare torso. Hi Naruto-kun. Ino followed every crease and every bulge in his chest and arms. She followed up and looked at his eyes. They had a lighter purple tint with small traces of cerulean showing from deep within, giving his eyes more depth than what they were before. The corners of her lips twitched up to form a smile. Hey there, pretty lady. Naruto smiled. I missed you. Did you now? Ino said, her entire face making a 180 turn around. Sakura and Sasuke came by here not too long ago to buy flowers or something, and they let it slip that you and Akunoichi were making out just before you left for Konoha. Ino had a stoic expression on her face, making it hard for Naruto to read her face. The only sign that Naruto had of the immediate danger was the fact that she was giving off massive amounts of killing intent. It was so great that his sensing abilities of Sage Mode were blinded and clogged. Naruto looked away, too afraid to make eye contact with the enraged blonde. Damn it. Those two ratted me out. Naruto was twitching slightly and looked at Ino with a nervous smile on his face. Ino raised her hand, instantly causing Naruto to cower in fear of what was to come. His heart was racing, especially since Ino hit harder than Sasuke does. Why are you flinching? Ino asked with an eyebrow raised. Naruto turned his head to see Ino pushing something out of the way. Naruto's eyes were wide with fear. Ka-chan. What do I do? Naruto asked. I'm taking a nap. Ask Kura-chan. Kushina's groggy voice replied, causing Naruto to sweat drop. Fine. Kura-ne. Naruto asked. What should I do? Challenge her to a spar or something. Kura replied before shutting off their connection. Geez. Both of them are so lazy. Naruto inwardly sighed and gave Ino a determined look. Alright. Let's spar. Naruto said. Now you're talking. Ino chirped. That's how you apologize to a kunoichi. Let's go then. Naruto headed for the front door. Ka-chan. Tu-san. Me and Naru-kun are going to train. I'll be back in a few hours or so. At Training Ground 7. Naruto, I want you to know that I am a special case in my clan. Ino started as she walked 10 paces away from Naruto. Their teams and senseis were sitting about watching the spar take place. Jiraiya was sitting in a tree and smiled brightly when he heard the words leave Ino's lips. I have an elemental Kekkei Genkei. She suddenly sped through hand seals, making an unknown combination. Naruto sensed a chakra surge coming from Ino and was immediately able to realize what kind of Kekkei Genkei she had. Senjutsu chakra does wonderful things. Naruto was frozen with fear. Well, she uses Rantan. Naruto's eyes widened when Ino finished the hand seal pattern. Rantan. Reiza Sakasu. Suddenly a large blast of light shot out for Naruto from Ino's extended hands. The lasers swished around, nearly catching onto Naruto's more not-so-cautious tails in the initial blast. Naruto continued to dodge and weave in between each attack and sent a few blasts of wind at the girl, but Ino easily evaded the attacks and sped through a few more hand seals. Rantan. Ryazaru no Jutsu. Ino clapped her hands together and a large dragon made from supercharged lightning and lasers came to life and shot at the unsuspecting redhead. Naruto on the other hand was getting nervous. He knew about Rantan and the powerful effect of Rantan jutsu. His clan was known for using them exclusively. But the whole Yamanaka using Rantan caught the young Uzumaki Namikaze off guard. The large dragon closed the distance and was ready to converge on Naruto's position. But Naruto surged his chakra sending out a massive blast of red chakra, which cancelled out the jutsu leaving a bubbling Naruto and a slightly peeved Ino. The blonde of the two went through a few more hand seals even though she knew that this was her limit. Rantan. Shushu go. The sky suddenly darkened above them terrifying Naruto. The red head was using the Kazemi to try and remove the storm but nothing was working. The sky boomed with thunder signifying that it was at its peak. Suddenly, instead of rain coming down in waves, it was instead a concentrated barrage of laser beams shooting from the sky towards Naruto. Oh shit! Naruto screamed and threw up the first hand seal that came to mind. Taju Kage Bunshin no Jutsu. Almost 1,000 Naruto clones popped into existence and took the hits for Naruto. After a series of amazing explosions and power outages, the battle was over and the sky cleared revealing a 10-foot deep crater with a sizzling shirtless Naruto lying in the center. His tails were black and singed with little hairs on fire. Naruto's once beautiful eyes were replaced with spinning spirals and his mouth was open wide with a dopey expression. Sakura charged down and went to heal the poor redhead. After a few minutes the boy shot up gasping for air and was petting his tail and mumbling incoherent words to himself. He looked back up at a sheepish-looking Ino and sighed. Where the hell did you get enough chakra to use 3 ranked jutsu consecutively? Naruto asked. I know me and Sasuke can but you. Hey. Ino's left eye twitched. What's that supposed to mean? Oh, wait. That didn't come out right. Naruto didn't reply quickly enough and was bonked on the side of his head by the 2 kunoichi present. Apology is not accepted Naruto. Ino turned around and proceeded to walk away. But, wait. Naruto called out to Ino causing her to stop and face Naruto. There is a way. What is it? Naruto asked. I'll do it. Then how are you supposed to apologize to a woman? Ino asked. Inwardly she and Sakura were smirking. Ino had him in a trap. Naruto looked to the male populace of the training ground. Each one said something that would, in normal circumstances, would have Ino loving you for days, but these weren't normal circumstances. Ino wanted Naruto for herself, but there was only one way to do that. The men continued to say stupid things but then Naruto sighed and looked up at Ino. After nearly 10 minutes of talking and getting every guess wrong, Naruto knew what it was. Will you go out with me? Naruto asked slowly getting ready to flinch. But Ino gave him a small kiss on the cheek and started walking away. That is how you apologize to a woman. Ino walked up and out of the crater. And yes I will. Pick me up at Friday night at 7. Don't forget and no Ichiraku ramen. After a long moment of silence the men had one question that went unanswered. What's wrong with ramen? At least you have an entire week to figure it out. Let's go. 7 o'clock Friday night. Naruto walked up to Ino's house with a civilian dress shirt over a pair of straight jeans. He was still wearing his black shinobi sandals and shinobi fingerless gloves. He was slightly nervous for the coming date. He hoped that nothing bad would happen and that it would go perfectly. He smiled to himself at the idea of being the boyfriend of one Ino Yamanaka. He walked up to their house and rang the doorbell. After a few minutes of waiting the door opened to reveal Ino in a casual dress with a large belt wrapped around her waist. She also appeared to have been wearing makeup. Her hair was done differently too. Instead of letting it all flow in a large ponytail, it was instead up in a traditional hair bun with kabuki-styled chopsticks in the bun holding her hair together. She was wearing high-heeled kunoichi boots. Hey, Naruto-kun, she smiled brightly when she looked at his fairly simple outfit. It wasn't too fancy nor was it underdressed. Naruto's tails also seemed to be wagging with excitement when Naruto looked at his girlfriend. He had his patented foxy smile spread across his face as he reached out and took hold of Ino's hand. She gladly accepted and waved goodbye to her parents, and the pair started heading down the street. "So Naruto-kun, where are we going?" Ino asked. "Somewhere really nice." Naruto smiled. "It's a surprise, so just wait." Ino nodded her head as they continued their trek through the night life of the village. Even though the sun was down, people were still out. Shops were still on and the movie theater was full of teen couples going in and out. Restaurants were also bustling with people at this time. Naruto smiled as he continued to lead Ino through the streets. Ino suddenly noticed where they were. "Naruto-kun," Ino asked out, "do you know where we are?" "Of course I do." Naruto smiled. He paid no attention to the looks that people were giving him and Ino. Many of them bowed deeply to Naruto while a few groups of girls giggled and blushed when Naruto would walk by. Ino was slightly peeved by this and tightened her hold on Naruto's hand. When they'd pass groups of girls, Ino would turn her head around and blow raspberries at them. "Here we are, Ino-chan." Ino had just forced herself to stop looking at the high-class clothes shops and other shops resigned for only the richest families in Konoha. Hell, the entire quarter was known to be exclusively for only the richest people in Konoha and the world. Vacation houses, private condos, high-class kabuki theaters, and the most expensive restaurants in the entire shinobi world. Holy shit, Aragawa Steakhouse. Ino's face was bright red. How? Even with a prominent clan like I have, we don't even have enough to eat here. Not only that, I heard that it's nearly impossible to get a reservation. It's a favor pulled by my grandfather. Naruto smiled. "We can order whatever we want free of charge." "Are you serious?" Ino asked with wide eyes. "Totally." Naruto smiled and held the door open for his girlfriend. Upon entering, she laid eyes on a beautiful grand foyer with a large fountain in the center. Above the fountain was a giant golden dragon statue that gazed out to the main entrance. Its eyes were made from the most amazing sapphires that the girl had ever laid eyes on. Well, they were the only sapphires that she'd ever laid eyes on, but that still didn't lessen the effect. There were at least 8 floors to this pagoda-like restaurant, each one seemingly getting better and better. Ino surmised that with each floor, the price rose by an undetermined amount. Already there were tons of people inside eating the gourmet steaks that Ino had dreamt of eating for the longest time. She kept admiring the furniture and internal design so much that she totally ignored Naruto. "Ino-chan," Ino snapped from her stupor and looked at their waiter and then to Naruto, who seemed to have a smug smirk on his face. Naruto gave a small chuckle and nodded at the waiter. Ino had no idea what they were talking about but assumed that it was something important. When the couple walked past the large dragon head gate, they were led through the main foyer and they walked past millionaires and billionaires. Many of them were exclusive clients for Konoha. Many of these men and women employed Konoha shinobi with millions of their hard-earned ryo to protect their interests and by proxy, Konoha's interest. Almost immediately, hundreds of businessmen and businesswomen rose from their seats and started clapping for Naruto. "That right there is the boy that freed Nami no Kuni from Gato's greedy clutches," a businessman said with a bright smile. Something about the man was extremely familiar. "It's me, Naruto. Tazuna." "Tazuna?" Naruto asked with a genuinely happy expression. The old man had shaved his scraggly beard and had bought himself a good-looking, albeit expensive, suit. The man looked classy and had tons of money to boot. "Hey Tazuna, why don't you join me and my girlfriend over a nice dinner?" Naruto asked. "I was planning on telling her all about the mission." "Why not?" Ino said with a bright smile. "Damn, I was hoping it would only be us two, maybe next date." "Alright then." Tazuna smiled and left his groupies to join the hero of Wave to their private 8th floor dinner room. When the doors opened, it came to reveal all glass windows and a perfect view of the entire village's nighttime skyline. The night was cloudless and the moon was at a waxing crescent. The vast multitude of colors that brightened the midnight Konoha scene brought wonders to Ino's chest. Not once has she ever seen something so beautiful. In the center of the room was a table filled with food and a series of plates. Naruto thought about it and surmised that this room was reserved for the daimyo himself and the Hokage. Let's get going then. Naruto smiled and the three sat at the table and grabbed rice and other sides for their plates. After a few moments of comfortable silence, Naruto had a Naruto moment and forgot what he was doing and missed his mouth by an inch while he was drinking his water. The water poured out and splashed all over his shirt, drenching it completely. Naruto sighed and unbuttoned his expensive silk shirt and tossed it away, leaving him shirtless at the table. Ino began to stutter and blush while Tazuna began to laugh. The old bridge builder went on to tell Ino about how he spent the last few days in Wave without a shirt. Ino giggled at most parts and made sideways glances at the fire head sitting next to her. On the outside she was smiling and enjoying the stories, but on the inside she was fuming that some Kiri girl beat her to claim the title of Naruto's first kiss. Shinobi or not, Ino was still a girl with girl needs. Naruto the entire time was smiling like an idiot while on the inside he was sweating bullets. Damn it, Tazuna. Why would you tell her that? Come on. I'm trying to apologize to her. Naruto nodded his head and gave a laugh when Tazuna pointed at him and asked if he remembered. Damn old man is trying to get me killed. Ino was nodding her head and soaking up the information like a sponge. She was actually considering kicking the poor redheads, but she was going to leave that for when Naruto apologizes to her again. Ino was about to say something, but her shinobi senses started kicking in. She narrowed her eyes and snapped at Tazuna, signifying it was his time to shut up. Tazuna and Naruto were about to say something, but Ino quickly shut the two of them up again. She reached into her dress, causing both men to blush slightly. When she removed her hand from her bra, she held two kunai. Naruto and Tazuna's eyes were as wide as the gourmet plates that were placed in front of them. What the hell is she doing strapped with weapons? Naruto wondered. Marry her, Naruto-kun. Now that is what a kunoichi should always do. Kushina cheered from within his mindscape. I agree with Kushi-chan. Kura laughed. I can tell she's the one for you, Kit. What? Naruto whimpered. I caught you. Ino flicked her wrists and the kunai shot out and zoomed for the two waiters that entered the room. The kunai tore through their expensive suits, but they didn't tear through just that, but instead, it continued to dispel whatever jutsu they had put up. Once the smoke dispelled, it came to reveal a beet red Kakashi and a smiling Sasuke. What am I doing here? Sasuke coughed awkwardly. My house is that way. So is mine. Kakashi and Sasuke started heading for the windows. Yane. Naruto and Ino's eyes were wide as they followed the two shinobis' every step. Before Ino or Naruto could process what had just happened, the two charged forward and jumped through two windows, shattering them completely, and jumped 8 stories to the street below. Ino was silent for a good 10 minutes as the couple stared at the now windowless window. That was interesting to say the least, Naruto coughed. Later that night, after finishing off their dinner date, the two left the restaurant and were walking aimlessly through Konoha's rich district. Groups of people were walking throughout the streets even at this time of night. Naruto and Ino were enjoying each other's company more than what they would have ever thought. Even though Ino would punch him every time he would say something perverted. Ino pulled him into a few shops and had him buy designer everything. The poor boy was locked in a trap and he knew he couldn't say no. So he emptied 2 wallets filled with almost 200,000 ryo each. The blonde of the couple was surprised at how much money the boy had. Naruto went on to explain that his parents had massive bank accounts that had enough money to have a country like Nami no Kuni live in prosperity for 10 years straight without any economic decline. Ino's jaw dropped at the amount Naruto had access to. Ino took a moment to think about all of the things she would be able to buy with that kind of money. Images of shoes, dresses, shades, hats, puppies, and other types of things that rich people would want. She shook those images from her mind though. She was a shinobi and the village came before her personal interests. The two continued to walk through the street, but they were suddenly stopped by a group of rich civilian boys. They looked at Ino and completely ignored Naruto. "Hey there, beautiful," one of them said as his friends pushed Naruto away. "What are you doing out here with that guy?" "I'm on a date, so if you'll excuse me." Ino was about to walk away, but then the lead guy grabbed her wrist. He tightened his grip a little too much and was close to breaking her wrist. Ino was surprised. For a civilian, this kid was pretty strong. Naruto just stood and watched as a small smile spread on his face. "They're gonna get it." Naruto inwardly laughed. "Oh, come on, babe. Don't be like that," the guy said in a not so flirtatious voice. "Shirtless firehead isn't that good looking any. I advise that you let me go," Ino said in a plain and emotionless voice. "You have 10 seconds to do so or else." "Really?" The teen started laughing. 9. "Oh, come on, P. 8. "I can make it." 7. "Don't be like th." 6. "I ju." 5. "She." 4. "I'm not let." 3. "I'm not scared of some." 2. "Bring it." Last warning. Ino turned to face them with a look that spelled horrifying torture. "No. Okay. 1. She sent her fist flying into the boy's face. They clashed in a violent explosion. In the wake of the dust cloud kicked up was a meter-wide crater with a badly beaten-up rich kid in the center. His cheek was purple and 3 times its original size. His eyes were rolled into the back of his head and blood poured from the stumps in his mouth where teeth used to be. "Who else wants some?" Ino asked with no emotion. "Oh, I should have introduced myself first. Yamanaka Ino, Kunoichi of Kanahagakure." The rest of the group took off running, leaving their ring leader in the crater. Ino huffed and crossed her arms under her chest and walked up to Naruto with a slight scowl on her face. Naruto wrapped his arm around Ino's shoulder and held her close to him. Some of his tails wrapped around and brought her closer. Ino looked up to Naruto's face to see a small smile adorning his lips. "Hey, I want to show you something," but before Ino could say something, she was hoisted up into Naruto's arms and carried up to the rooftops in the bridal-style position. Ino was slightly confused but didn't say anything. She rested her head on his strong shoulders and placed her right hand on his chest and felt his heartbeat and smiled slightly when she felt it increase speed. A few minutes later, "Here we are," Naruto said with a bright smile. He was nervous. He hoped that Ino would like this place. From here was the most beautiful view of the village. It was a place that wasn't frequented at all by anyone, shinobi and civilian alike. It was the Hokage Mountain. As of now they stood on the head of one of Konoha's greatest heroes, Naruto's father, Minato Namikaze. "It's be beautiful," Ino gasped. How come this was never spoken of before?" Ino asked. "Because no one took the time to come up here." Naruto smiled and sat down. He motioned her to sit with him and she quickly complied, leaning against his left shoulder as she looked out at the bustling village. She could see everyone's house from where they were. She focused her eyes and she could see Sasuke at the park giving Sakura a rose. Cheesy but effective. She looked out to the forest surrounding the village and smiled at how peaceful the world looked from their position high above the village. She had no idea which Hokage they were sitting on and looked to Naruto for an answer. The redhead quickly read on what she wanted and nodded his head. "We are sitting on the head of my father," Naruto smiled. "During my early life, when I was being chased down by villagers and attacked," Ino and Naruto looked down slightly. "I would always lose them on the way to the top of the mountain. One night though, I was feeling curious and I journeyed all the way to the top." Naruto looked out at the village. "The moment I sat down on one of the platforms that jutted from the cliff face, I instantly fell in love with this place." Ino looked back to the village. Who couldn't fall in love with something so beautiful? "So, a few days later after I found out about this place, I would always come here during my birthday, since it was always the worst day to be out." Naruto took a deep breath and sniffled. Ino perked her head up and looked to see Naruto was crying. After I found out that my father was the Yondaime, I went up here find his head and I found out that it was the platform that I would always go to. Naruto smiled brightly and wiped away some flowing mucus. From that moment on, I knew that I was meant to protect this village. I knew what I had to do. Naruto let a few more tears fall before continuing. I also knew that my father loved me with all of his heart. He led me here that night all of those years ago. He and my mother are the reasons why I am training so hard to become the greatest Hokage. That was beautiful and Naruto-kun, Ino said with tears forming in the corners of her own eyes. Her breath hitched as she looked into Naruto's purple cerulean eyes, examining every feature of his irides. Her face was suddenly drawn close to Naruto's, just as his was to hers. Naruto's eyes traced the flawless features of her face. He looked into her sky-blue eyes. He realized how much definition there was to them, causing him to blush. Their lips grazed against each other. Ino shut her eyes completely and inched closer and closer. She could feel his lips on her own. They were so damn close, but yet so far. Naruto wanted to be the one to do it first, but he didn't want to be too upfront about kissing her, since she knew all about Haku. Ino wanted to be the one to start it, but she didn't want to seem like a desperate little girl. But under the moonlight, all of that was thrown out of the blonde's teenage girl head. She shot her hands to Naruto's cheeks and grabbed him, smashing her lips onto his. At first nothing was felt, but then an underlying flame was sparked between the two. Naruto's surprised eyes closed slowly as the kiss deepened. Ino's hands slid across his face and wrapped around his head as she pulled him closer to her. Naruto complied with no question and wrapped his own arms around her back. Naruto's tongue came out and rubbed against Ino's lips. She complied and let the redhead gain access to her mouth, his tongue exploring every part of her mouth. Soon enough their tongues were in a heated battle with one another, with Ino trying to maintain her dominance and Naruto trying to knock her a few pegs down. They went at it for quite some time, neither of them looking at the time. After nearly 5 minutes of kissing, the two broke apart, with a long trail of saliva connecting their bottom lips together. Their faces were flushed and the two of them were breathing hard. Naruto's hair was ruffled and Ino's dress was disheveled in certain places. All they did was kiss. Naruto's tails were affectionately wrapped around her, thus keeping her close to the shirtless redhead. Ino gave him a kiss on his neck and laid her head on his shoulder. She raised her head and put her lips so close to the boy's fox ears that he could feel her warm breath, which caused him to shiver from excitement. We should do this again, Naruto-kun. 8 months have passed since Wave and the Chunin exams were literally just around the corner. Not only that, but Team 7 as a whole had gained fame and recognition throughout the shinobi world, and they were only genin. In the few months that had passed since their first C-ranked mission, they were given a series of C-ranked missions in which there was a reoccurring theme. They were plagued with a S-ranked missing ninja. But since they had experience with that kind of situation, they were able to suppress the threats as quickly as possible. In most accounts of the three taking down our S-ranked missing nin, they did it on their own, with their sensei incapacitated somewhere. Kakashi of course denied those fallacies. Another source of fallacies that were denied by Kakashi was the ongoing rumor about the last of the Hatake seeing the snake mistress of Konoha, i.e. Mitarashi Anko. Many people got word from Naruto and his teammates when they'd stalked their sensei. They claimed that it was stealth and espionage training. But in truth, the three genin were just trying to get whatever dirt they could on their sensei. Not once were their C-ranked missions normal ones. But because of their initial success and the way they handled the Nami no Kuni mission, they were able to build up on that experience and apply it to their other more difficult C-ranked missions. It was as if the Hokage was purposely setting those missions up as a test of their power. Little did they know, the old monkey was doing just that. Back in the years of his youth, he had his genin team of Orochimaru, Senju Tsunade and Namikaze Jiraiya take a long series of life-threatening combat missions during both the Second and Third Shinobi World Wars, to test their combat prowess. He and Jiraiya did the same to Minato when he and Kushina would go on missions together. The missions were designed to give the selected shinobi skills to excel in places that would be perfect for them. Hiruzen was training Naruto for combat and for him to understand strategy and tactics, since the redhead was the one leading most of the missions aside from Sasuke and a few times Sakura. The redhead was on a steady path to becoming Hokage. The Sarutobi was having Sasuke train his Sharingan to use to the fullest potential, so that one day, the young boy could topple Danzo and take his place as the head of Root. And Sakura was learning to master her medical ninjutsu by constantly having to heal wounds on her teammates that were progressively getting worse and worse with each mission they took. She was on the road to rivaling the slug Sannin herself. Overall, he'd give the Genin team SS ranked in all areas of combat awareness. They worked together like a well-oiled machine, like a family. Their team dynamics were unseen as ever than before. Not only that, but their lives didn't revolve completely around being a shinobi. They had extremely healthy social lives as seen from how Sasuke and Sakura are always together and Naruto and Ino are literally near inseparable. Sarutobi took a deep puff of his pipe and sighed. That kind of teamwork hasn't been seen since the original Ino Shika-Cho formation. Sarutobi was slightly disappointed when he found that the next generation wasn't working as well as their fathers did. The only one so far doing most of the work and the unofficial team leader was Ino. Shikamaru was lazier than his father, but 1,000 times smarter. Choji was powerful, but lacked the mobility that a shinobi should have. Being an Akamichi was no excuse. But even then, they had exceptional teamwork and they were able to handle their fair share of C-ranked missions. Then there was Team 8. The perfect tracking team in all respects. Hiruzen smiled and took another puff of his pipe. Hinata worked perfectly with her two teammates. The Hyuga would pinpoint enemies, Kiba would come in and weed them out. Once the targets were out and in the open, Shino would jump in and send out his beetles to the chakra from the targets' bodies to disable them. Perfect search and eliminate team, as seen by their impressive record of 15 C-ranked missions in the last 8 months. All in all, Hiruzen was hoping to see the Rookie 11 in the Chunin exams this year, and be the first generation to be entered into the exams together. He looked up from the team registration form in front of him and looked up to see various Junin senseis of Genin teams from the village. He couldn't help but smile when he saw Kurenai, Asuma and Kakashi all talking with the more flamboyant Maida guy. It's time to start with Chunin exam registration. Hiruzen said. I'd like to start with the rookie instructors. I, Sarutobi Asuma, nominate Team 10. I, Yuhi Kurenai, nominate Team 8. I, Hitaki Kakashi, nominate Team 7. Almost instantly there were whispers and comments being made about Team 7. The Prodigy Team as they were called. They were rumored to have excelled in every mission given to them, even though each one was botched by high-leveled missing ninja coming into the picture. Soon enough there were comments about how Kakashi was incapacitated in many of them and how his students always came to save him. Kakashi was about to save the only dignity he had left, but all of the whispering and talking was silenced when Hiruzen raised his hand. Kakashi sighed in relief and scratched his face awkwardly. He looked over to see Kurenai giggling slightly but stopped and looked to the Hokage. Alright. Seeing as how no one here has any disagreement with the nominations, Hiruzen stayed quiet to let whomever had second thoughts to speak, but continued after a few moments of silence. Then it's official. The rookie Konoha 11 shall compete in this year's Chunin exams. Later that day. That was freaking amazing. Naruto laughed as he and his friends left the high-class cinema theaters in the rich district of the village. His arm was locked with Ino, Sasuke's with Sakura, Kiba's with Hinata and Choji with some civilian that he met a few months prior. She was skinny but had strength to make up for her slender build. And she was a lot like Ino and Sakura when enraged. Shikamaru wasn't there since he was too lazy to get up that morning. I know, right? Choji laughed. Those special effects make all of those crazy powers that she has look so damn real. I wish I had powers like that. Kiba sighed. Suddenly everyone stopped and looked at Kiba with a strange look. Kiba looked back at them with an aloof expression. Sasuke leaned to Naruto and Choji leaned in to listen. Sasuke was whispering something and it was pissing Kiba off. Suddenly the three boys started chuckling like idiots, making Kiba furrow his brow even more. Next to him, Ino was whispering what Sasuke had said to Hinata. The two girls started giggling and soon enough Sasuke filled Sakura in on the joke and Choji filled his girlfriend in. Soon enough, Kiba was left out of the loop. The entire group was laughing so hard that they had caught the attention of many of the passerbyers, receiving strange looks from some of them. While some of the more snobby rich guys would catcall the girls of the group. They continued walking through the streets and they caught sight of one of the most expensive clothing stores in the entire shinobi world. Eternally 21. Naruto and Sasuke's eyes widened as memories of what happened the last time they went, came flashing in their minds. Seeing as this version of the store was explicitly female, the two boys had nothing to do except pay the ridiculous prices for their girls' shoes and clothes. But they were happy. At least they weren't super uptight about being shinobi and took the time to act like women. The girls of each couple pulled their bows towards the front doors of the store, but they were blocked by three Junins. Kakashi gave them a smile. Kurenai gave them a small laugh and Asuma simply spit out his cigarette onto the paved road. Suddenly the shop owner came out. He was a scrawny man in his 30s most likely and had two extremely ripped men wearing suits right behind him. The shop owner also had on an expensive business suit. Smoking is prohibited here, Shinobi-san. The man said with a strange accent to his voice. Dude, this guy acts and talks like a girl. Sasuke snickered to Naruto. They may be the most powerful genin in the world, but they had the maturity of toddlers. Oh, I'm sorry little man, Asuma said in a sarcastic manner. The two bodyguards inched closer to Asuma who seemed to not even care. Mind telling your boys to back away? I'm in the mood for not giving a. Asuma narrowed his eyes and equipped his trench knives. Wind chakra was absorbed and extended the cutting length. The bodyguards backed away. Oh, stop this, Shinobi-san. The man playfully tapped Asuma on his right bicep. No need to get so riled up now. I swear I read something like this happening in the desert edition of the Ika Ika Paradise. Kakashi was bashed on the head by not one, not even two, but four women at the same time. All men flinched, except the shop owner. Shortly after the escalating situation was diffused, the respective Junin of each team shunshined with their teams to their respective training grounds. Kakashi did a quick evaluation of each of his students. Naruto was first. The redhead had excelled as a strategist and tactician. The kid was able to come up with strategies in the middle of combat, and most of his strategies worked without any problem. Not only that, but the kid was basically a jutsu sponge. Every technique taught to him by Kakashi, Asuma and Jiraiya, the kid not only mastered them, but made them even more powerful. His mastery over water and lightning was perfection and his master of wind was almost there. Jiraiya even said that Naruto is close to unlocking the Tsutomu Mi. The second stage of the K's Mi. Sasuke was a genius in all aspects of the word, but the kid knew what humility was and didn't let it get to his head. The Uchiha looked to Naruto and Sakura as levels to rate himself against. If he lagged behind either or, he would revamp his training to make sure that he doesn't fail his brother and girlfriend. Another great trait that the Uchiha had, was the ability to move on and gain power through other means beside the normal Uchiha way, through hatred. Sasuke continued to grow stronger because of his will to protect his new family. Like Naruto, Sasuke was an offensive jutsu sponge and soaked up everything that he was taught and everything that he found in his jutsu library. Then there was Sakura. Out of the three students that he had, he couldn't help but say that hands down, she had grown the most. From earlier reports about the pink-haired banshee, as she was called, she concentrated more on the Uchiha more than actually becoming a shinobi. But ever since Wave, the girl had gained respect from her peers and from herself. She even cut her hair to show that she was serious about being a powerful shinobi so that wouldn't hinder her team. But unlike Sasuke and Naruto, she mostly excelled as a defensive and support type of kunoichi, something extremely rare for a kunoichi, since it required lots of strength to keep the flanks of the offensive type cleared of any attacks. Sakura also was referred to as the second Tsunade, since she absorbed medical ninjutsu and medical theorem much like how Sasuke and Naruto were for combat. With his evaluations done, he nodded his head and looked up to the heavens and smiled a foxy smile, much like something that Naruto and his parents did on a daily basis. Kakashi's heart pounded with excitement. I didn't fail you, father, or you sensei, or even you Obito. Kakashi smiled even brighter. I have succeeded in leading these children. Okay, Kakashi said as he looked back down at his students. I have wonderful news to tell you. All three looked at him with their heads tilted slightly. I have nominated you three for the Chunin exams. Kakashi said with a smile. I hope that you three will accept. It's completely optional, so if you don't, it's understandable. No rookie team has ever gone to the Chunin exams and survived. Kakashi waited for the great and inspirational response from his students. But, those teams aren't us. Sakura cheered. Of course not. Sasuke added. We are Team 7. Naruto started as his smile widened even more. And we accept. All three said as they entered chibi form and threw up peace signs before returning back to normal. Haha. Come to the academy in 2 weeks for official entrance to the test. Kakashi smiled. So, for the next 2 weeks, would you three like to train or just sit around? Kakashi asked, even though he knew what the answer was. Let's train. A few hours later, Team 7 was on their way to get some ramen, but then Naruto and Sasuke sensed a familiar presence coming from a nearby fence. Naruto asked Sasuke side and scratched the back of their heads. Damn it, little K. Sasuke said. If you're going to camouflage with the fence, then at least match the patterns of the fence. Naruto deadpanned. Bah, I knew that having you two as my mentors, that I would truly become strong. Konohamaru walked up to the older boys and gave them both a hug. Naruto ni, can we come over to your house again and play with the ducks? Sure thing, little K. Naruto smiled at his little brother. Hey, look over there. It seems Shikamaru is being manhandled by some chick. Sweet. I wanna see. Both boys took off, leaving the Konohamaru core and Sakura behind in a dust storm. The two boys closed the distance in less than a second. They both stopped to see Shikamaru staring a hot blonde-haired Suna Kunoichi down. Her eyebrow was ticking as their staring contest ensued. Next to her, Ino had an annoyed look on her face as she too glared Shikamaru down. Behind them next to a tree was a Suna shinobi in a black full-body cat suit reading an Ika Ika book with Choji. Naruto and Sasuke put 2 and 2 together and laid their eyes on a green book. The title read Ika Ika Paradise. The Jungle Edition. Hana takes a swing for Ryu's tree. Naruto and Sasuke's eyes were wide when they read the title. Must be from his father's secret stash. Naruto and Sasuke both concluded at the same time. What was that, Naruto-kun? Kushina asked with a menacing tone. Her hair was floating around, signifying her red-hot blooded habanero state. In nothing, Ka-chan. Oh, Kushi-chan. Calm down. It's not that bad. Kura came to defend Naruto. Back in the real world, Naruto was approached by another sand shinobi. This kid had a large sand gourd on his back and seemed to have eye bags underneath his eyes. The kid looked to Naruto and started chattering like a tanuki. Naruto's eyes widened immediately and started growling like a fox. The conversation brought attention from the pervert on death row, and Hana and Riku giving full body massages to Ryu. What number? Gaara chattered. 9. You. Naruto growled. 1. Pleasure to see you again, Kurane. Gaara added. Oh, it's nice to see you being respectful for once. Naruto growled with a little chuckle. I like how your vessel looks. Is it possible to have it done with mine? Gaara chattered back. Of course. Just force out your sand and I'll use my tails to shield off the area so it'll be contained. Naruto replied. Suddenly, the cork popped off of Gaara's gourd and poured out to form half of a circle around the two Jinchuriki, and Naruto's tail shot out to form the second half. A powerful and bright white light glowed form within the ball. From within, Gaara's appearance started changing. After a few minutes of iridescent blinding light, the tails and sand retracted to reveal Gaara with a sandy tanuki tail. Gaara's eyes seemed relaxed and he as a whole seemed less tensed. I feel powerful. Naruto finished. Don't let it get to your head though. Naruto smiled. You three must the children of the Cage, right? Yes they are. A gruff and authoritative voice reverberated behind them. All 12 heads turned to see a man just slightly taller than Temari wearing robes that some semblance to the robes worn by the Hokage. The only difference was the fact that instead of the kanji for fire on his hat, it had the kanji for wind. The man removed his mask to look at Naruto and his youngest son. Two Jinchuriki stood in front of him, both of which had done something strange. Kage-sama. The Konoha shinobi bowed deeply. We didn't mean any disrespect for not noticing you. None taken, Uzumaki Namikaze-san. The Kage smiled and removed his mask to reveal a man that seemed to be only in his mid-40s. He nodded at his three children. I look forward to seeing you and Uchiha-san in the finals. I'm pretty sure that it'll be one hell of a match, especially since you two are the highest-ranking genin in the bingo books continent-wide. Really? Naruto and Sasuke looked at each other and looked back to the Cage. What rank? Double S ranked. The Cage tossed them an updated bingo book. It is the first time in history that genin were ever double S ranked, let alone in a bingo book. Dude, this is so awesome. Naruto smiled brightly. Thank you Kage-sama. 2 weeks later, the Konoha 11 made their way to the academy together. They were silent and surprisingly nervous. All around them at the entrance to the academy were teenagers and genin from Sand or from smaller shinobi villages that came from the smaller nations that bordered the elemental nations. The three teams went into the academy and quickly saw through the genjutsu and headed up to the actual room. Upon entering they came upon a sight that they didn't think they would ever see. I thought Kiri had a civil war. Sakura said, remembering back to what Haku had told her the week before they left Wave. I hope Haku and Zabuza made it out alive. I thought Iwa and Kuma hated us. Ino added. And I thought Odo isolated itself from the mainland elemental nations, Shikamaru piped. Naruto closed his eyes but widened them upon sensing the three masses of malicious chakra. Naruto looked to Gaara, who seemed to have sensed it too. Naruto flashed the signs for 2, 3 and 4, signifying which Biju he sensed. The only problem was that he couldn't tell if the Jinchuriki were allies or not. Hey, I think you rookies might want some help with these exams. A random genin from Konoha said. In his arms was a massive stack of cards. These here are ninja info cards. Give me a name and it will have everything about that person. Alright. Uzumaki Namikaze Naruto, Sabaku no Gaara, and Rock Lee. You got it. Kabuto said and pulled out 3 cards. He channeled his chakra into it from what Sasuke could see with his Sharingan. Rock Lee. He has no skills in ninjutsu, or genjutsu. He relies explicitly on taijutsu. His teammates are Hiroshi Tenten and Hyuga Neji. Their Junin sensei is Maeda Guy. He has completed 10 D rank missions and 2 C rank missions. Sabaku no Gaara. That's strange. It can't read his skills. His teammates are his siblings, Temari and Kankuro. Their Junin sensei is Baki. He has completed no D ranks and went straight to complete 10 C ranks and Okami, an A rank. But that's not all, he was able to make it through all of his missions unscathed. Now for the finale. The entire room was silent as everyone awaited to hear Naruto's card. Uzumaki Namikaze Naruto. Kabuto's eyes went wide. His skills are off the charts except in Genjutsu. His teammates are Uchiha Sasuke and Haruno Sakura. Their Junin sensei is Hitaki Kakashi. He has completed 50 D-ranked missions, 30 C-ranked missions, 20 of which were upgraded to B ranks and the other 10 were upgraded to A ranks. So in total, he finished 20 B ranks and 11 A ranks. Not to mention the K's me. Naruto elbowed Sasuke and the Uchiha instantly got the message. The two jumped onto a desk and smiled at the competition. Naruto's tail swished in anticipation. I am Uchiha Sasuke. I am Uzumaki Namikaze Naruto. And we are going to kick all of your asses. The two boys shouted out. The two boys flared their dujutsu revealing the Sharingan and the Kazemi causing uproar with the older Kumo and Iwa Genin. They were told scary stories as children about the Kazemi, the dujutsu of the feared Minato Namikaze. But before any hostilities could start, everyone was shut up by the sounds of popping. All heads turned to the front of the classroom. Out of all of the Chunin and Junin at the front of the classroom, Naruto and Sasuke were able to notice Izumo and Katetsu. The two boys waved at them. Shut your traps, maggots. Or else I will shut your ing faces. The man's voice was so powerful it sounded like any more and your organs would shut down from fear of him going through with his threats. Now take a seat. Each student was placed in random areas of the testing room which was actually quite large. Sakura was 20 rows away from Naruto and Sasuke was another 20 rows behind Sakura. Naruto sat in the front of the class with a calm expression. Ino was seated next to him. He received a wink from Katetsu and Izumo. It seems they pulled an unasked favor for Naruto. They owed the kid for what he did. Anyway, Naruto sighed and nodded his head at Ino. His tail swished around and he would signal Ino for answers just in the case that he didn't have any answers. He shrugged and looked down at his test and realized that there were nearly 30 sheets of paper with a varying number of questions on each sheet, front and back. Here are the rules. You and your team have 10 points. If you cheat and get caught, then you will lose 2 points for each time you cheat. First time you as an individual cheats, then you will be penalized. If you or a teammate get caught again, then your entire team gets penalized. The giant man at the front of the room said. Now, if you get caught cheating and deny it, you will receive another point reduction. If you get caught and try to defend yourself to me, then I will throw you out of the window. The man finished and placed his pointer on the podium at the front of the class. Now then here's the overview. Don't get caught. Don't piss me off. And have fun. Begin. Naruto looked at the first question and was surprised at how easy and straightforward they were. Tactics and Shinobi Theorem. Simple stuff that Naruto was able to pick up on, because of the C-ranked missions he had taken for the last few months. Naruto smiled brightly when he realized that many of the genin present probably don't even know a quarter of the stuff on this test. The only genin that could stand a chance was definitely the Konoha 11, Gaara's team, and the teams that held the other 3 Jinchuriki. Naruto looked around subtly trying to not get caught. Spending much of the 8 months spying on Kakashi, made his observation skills skyrocket, that and the fact that the redhead started peeking with his grandfather, much to his mother's dismay. Naruto sighed and made a quick count of the genin present. There were about 10 teams from Iwa, 10 teams from Kumo, 5 teams from Suna, 5 from Odo, around 20 from Suna, and at least 50 were from Konoha. The boy thought about the exams a bit more and surmised that there had to be more rooms than just the one that he was in. 55 minutes later, Naruto had finished his test and smiled. He put his pencil down and looked about. Ino awoke from her seemingly peaceful nap, and started scribbling down answers on her test. She gave an unnoticeable smile to Naruto. Crash. All heads shot up to see Ibiki throwing a genin out of the 3rd floor window. All eyes were wide. This guy isn't ing around. Naruto paled and gave Kami silent thanks for allowing him to finish the blasted test faster than what he hoped. After another 5 minutes, Ibiki walked back to the front of the class and took a deep breath. Pencils down. Genin fumbled with their writing utensils and looked up at the Junin with fear in their eyes. Time for the final question. What? Some Konoha Genin shouted. You didn't say anything about a final question. An Iowa Genin shouted instead. Come on. Silence. Ibiki's deadly voice shut off all forms of protest. This is my test, so I make the rules. If anyone has a problem with it, then they could leave and fail this goddamn test. Ibiki pointed to the door and waited for another half-assed remark. Good. So this last question is optional. If you choose not to take it, then you and your team may be able to take the test again later this year. But if you choose to take the test and get it wrong, then you and your team will never be able to become Chunin. What? Some Genin shouted. This. Let's go. Soon enough, half of the teams that were in the room got up and left. When some of the teams saw their friends leave, they too left, feeling the pressure of the question. But Naruto saw through the act. Team 7 encountered a missing ninja that acted the exact same way. Naruto raised his hand. Soon enough, a few more teams left when they saw the Uzumaki Namikaze giving up. But after the numbers had been thinned out, Naruto slammed his hand down on the desk. That. Naruto had a wry smile spread across his face. I don't give a damn if I get the question wrong. I have to become Hokage one day, and I can't do that if I'm too afraid to answer a simple question. Soon enough, the remaining teams had their confidence restored. They looked up at the fiery redhead with big smiles and wry smirks. Naruto's tails were swishing about with excitement. All right then, you pass. Ibiki had a large smile on his face. Naruto's face faltered and collapsed on his seat. The Genin present let the breath that they didn't know they held go. Some of the Genin started chuckling to themselves before looking up to Ibiki for an explanation. I already asked the final question. It was whether or not you want to answer the question. Ibiki took off his hitai to reveal a mass of deep scars and flailed skin. In our line of crash. Shattered glass flew everywhere, forcing everyone to cover their eyes. In the front of the classroom, wearing a light brown trench coat and skimpy clothing underneath, was the rumored love interest of one Hatake Kakashi. Behind her was a large banner that said Mitarashi Anko, Konoha's Y Beast. The banner was held up by kunai embedded into the walls. The lady had an Ika book instead of the normal stick of dango. Crash. Soon enough, the pretty boy, Hatake Kakashi, came crashing through another window with an enraged look on his face. He ran up to Anko and started fighting over the precious book in her hands, while she tried to reach for the box of dango hidden behind his back. Ibiki sighed and rolled his eyes. Not only was the exuberant purple-haired snake mistress early, but she and Kakashi were shamelessly flirting in front of everyone. Team 7 face planted with their desks when they saw how Kakashi was acting. A few minutes later. So the rumors have been confirmed. Kakashi and Anko shrugged. The snake lady then turned to the class to see all of them beat red from the little show of PDA between two Junin in their mid-20s. Oh okay. So I'm Mitarashi Anko. Meet me at the Forest of Death, I mean Training Ground 44. The lady gave a maniacal laugh before the two Junin shunshined away in a swirl of leaves. The surviving Genin got up and started filing out of the classroom and headed out of the academy. Sakura was in Sasuke's arms and Ino was in Naruto's. Now some shinobi owe the Genin of Team 7 some money. Naruto, Sasuke and Sakura said quite loudly. Suddenly a little over 40 Junin and nearly 60 Chunin surrounded the three Genin with their wallets out. The amount of money that each of them received ranged from 200 ryo to nearly 2,000. The amount they received ranged from person to person. I like the fact that my own students are using my love life as a way to make money. Kakashi deadpanned from behind with Anko enwrapped in his right arm. The sensei had a blank expression on his face, but then he leaned in on his three students. If you each buy me something Ika related, then I think we can forget that this all happened. Kakashi had a perverted smile on his face. Think of it as compensation for having to put up you three brats for a little over a year. I know what he wants. Naruto and Sasuke cheered and ran off, leaving their girls behind. They do know that we need to head off to the forest of death, right? Ino deadpanned. I don't even know. Sakura facepalmed before taking off with Ino to catch their idiot boyfriends. Ino and Sakura had caught up with their eccentric boyfriends and dragged them towards the forest of death. They passed many shinobi who recognized them instantly and started cheering for Team 7, leaving Ino feeling slightly misplaced. But she felt happy and smiled at how far Naruto had come from being the dead last for 7 years in the academy. It wasn't his fault though. It was because of his ungodly amount of chakra. The amount that she wished she had. They made it to the training ground and found nearly 50 teams waiting and just conversing with one another. Naruto looked around and dusted himself off and nodded his head. He was right. There were other rooms for testing, he just got lucky or unlucky, depending on who you're talking to, and got ibiki. Naruto heard things from other shinobi when they were passing by. Apparently news gets out fast and everyone knew about Naruto's little speech he made. Naruto sighed, liking the attention, but found it extremely creepy how everyone seemed to know everything that he did. It was as if someone was spying on him. He thought of many reasons as to why someone would want to spy on him, and only one made the most sense. Someone must hate him. Naruto thought of all of the people that he had wronged in the last month. Only one name stuck out the most. Kakashi. Naruto spied on him, humiliated him, teased him, and beat him at sparring for the first time, but what reason did Kakashi have to spy on Naruto beside that? But Naruto shrugged and chose to place the blame on Sasuke like he always did. Alright, Gaki, Enko said. There seemed to be something black on her neck that she was trying her hardest to hide. Her face was flushed and her trench coat seemed shut tight. Sakura and Ino's eyes were wide when they caught sight of this. They looked to their side and saw Team 9 walking up to them. Lee and Neji walked over to Naruto and Sasuke. The rest of the Rookie 11 split into two groups, the men and the girls got together. The guys were talking about normal guy things while the girls. They all noticed the minor differences in Enko's clothing and posture. Even though all of them were virgins, they knew the telltale signs of UAL intercourse. And also the fact that Enko was trembling, it had to have been good, albeit quick. Ino watched closely and smiled even brighter when Enko's lips twitched, showing that she had stretched out mouth a little too much in the past few moments and her lips are still adjusting to the width. Enko's been giving some head to a lucky scarecrow, if you know what I mean. Ino nudged Sakura. All of the kunoichi in the group got the innuendo instantly. They began to giggle perversely. Behind them in an even larger group, Neji brought his portable TV and played the motion picture rendition of Ika Ika Paradise, Lost at Sea edition. The boys were blushing like madmen and were so glued to the little screen that they didn't notice a certain someone creeping up on them. Nice movie. Enko hissed like a seductive snake. Her tongue slithered out and started ing Naruto's cheek. You know, ratting me and Kakashi out like that had some serious balls, kid. Enko's hands suddenly wrapped around his torso. She gasped when she felt how strong he was. When she looked up from his body, she locked eyes with him, instantly becoming entranced by his eyes. Aye. Hands off my man, Ino screeched. The blonde pushed Enko off of Naruto, but before the purple-haired woman could hit the ground, Naruto's tail shot out and wrapped around her to make sure that she wouldn't loosen her clothing. He pulled her up and set her down on the ground. His tails tightened the trench coat strap to keep it closed. Enko blushed at how soft Naruto was being. Ino glared at Enko but let it slide. Oh okay, so Gakis, this test is to test how well you use the tactics and skills that you should have gained over the years or year of experience out in the field. Enko then walked away from the rookie teams and headed to the front of the entire congregation. There are two types of scrolls that will be handed out at random, a heaven scroll and an earth scroll. The objective is to get the scroll opposite to your original scroll. Let's say you have an Earth Scroll. Then your objective is to get the Heaven Scroll while still keeping the Earth Scroll and vice versa. Enko nodded to one of the proctors and a group of instructors started handing out papers to each genin to sign. 30 minutes later. What scroll did you guys get? Naruto asked Ino as their teams walked over to their designated gate. Heaven. Which did you get? Ino asked. Heaven as well. Naruto smiled brightly. Let's watch out in there. We'll never know what we'll encounter, Yano. Alright, Gakis. Get ready. Enko shouted from the watchtower nearby. Get set. All teams hunched over. Ino fixed her bangs. Sasuke tapped his hair. Sakura got her game face on. Naruto drew out 2 3-pronged kunai. The four were bouncing on the heels of their feet. Excitement was almost uncontainable. Go. Immediately, all teams charged through the gates. The fence closed immediately behind them, effectively locking them in the training ground. A few minutes passed by and Team 7 was making good progress, but for some strange reason they didn't encounter any teams. Naruto's Sage Chakra sensed an overly dark chakra signature coming from behind. Duck. The genin forced their weight forward, and a gigantic snake flew right above them, crashing into a tree. The three landed on a tree branch and looked to see 3 Odo shinobi. Something about them had the Senjutsu chakra going nuts. The man in front of them had flowing black hair with a large rice picker hat. Next to him was a pale-skinned teen with a dark look on his face. On the other side of the hat-wearing Odo shinobi, was a mask-wearing boy. I see that my luck has brought me here, to the last Uchiha and Namikaze. The man said with the slipperiness of a snake. The man's tongue shot out and slithered like a snake's did. He sped through hand seals, but Naruto beat him to it.